Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
I recently noticed in some magazines a fantasy some men have about being dressed up by schoolgirls and teased. It made me wryly smile because it reminded me of a real-life incident years ago, which was anything but a fantasy. It was a nightmare. It happened in 1955, when my twin sister Emma and I were 15 years old, living in a town on the Sussex coast. I attended a local school, while Emma commuted 5 miles inland to a school at the foot of the South Downs, taking the bus daily. The trouble started one late October afternoon. Emma, along with her friends Grace, Rachel, Lily, their boyfriends, and myself, were at a coffee bar on the seafront. The girls, still in their school uniforms which they loathed, became the subject of playful teasing from us boys. My sense of humor sometimes gets me into trouble, and this was one of those times. I crossed a line when I remarked loudly, "But I think it's a lovely uniform for 4 cute 10-year-old schoolgirls." The girls, especially in front of their boyfriends, found this embarrassing. Emma snapped at me, "Oh, shut up, Mark. We've had enough of your stupid comments. One day, you'll regret them." That ended the conversation, and I thought nothing more of it. Unfortunately, the girls did not forget, as I soon discovered to my dismay. A couple of weeks later, on a Thursday afternoon, I was at home with Mum. I had started my half-term holidays a week before Emma, who was at school that day. It was then that I realized just how clever my sister was at orchestrating events. The phone rang, and Mum answered. After hanging up, she told me, "That was Emma. She left her bag on her bed this morning and wants me to drop it off at school on my way to Horsham for that meeting. I said I wouldn't have time, so she suggested I drop you off with it so you two can come home together on the bus. You're not busy, are you?" "No problem. How will I recognize her?" "Oh, she mentioned she'll be waiting in front of the old wooden sports pavilion at 3 o'clock. You've been there during sports days, right?" "Yeah, I have." "All right then." Glancing at her watch, Mum remarked, "Wow, it's already 2:30. We should get going. Go grab her bag upstairs, and I'll start the car." I hurried upstairs to Emma's room, grabbed her bag, and rushed back downstairs. Mum grabbed her briefcase, and soon we were speeding up the A24 toward the village near Emma's school. We pulled up at the school gates, and Mum dropped me off with Emma's bag in hand. Having been there several times before, I walked up the driveway, around the back of the school buildings, and out onto the sports field where many girls were playing games. Passing by the new sports pavilion, I headed toward its older, wooden predecessor. Emma was standing there with Rachel, Lily, Grace, and a few other friends. She waved as she spotted me. I approached her and said, "Here's the bag." She looked at me, smiled, and said, "Thank you so much, dear brother. Come inside, and I'll change." We entered the pavilion, but I should have been suspicious when several of her friends followed us inside. Emma went into a cubicle at one end and emerged a few minutes later in jeans and a jacket, carrying her school uniform. She walked over to a row of hooks, hung up her uniform, then turned to me with a mischievous grin. "Now, Mark, remember a couple of weeks ago at that coffee bar? You said, what was it? Oh yes, that our school uniforms made us look like cute little 10-year-olds. Well, they do." I chuckled foolishly. "Yes, indeed. And I also mentioned we'd had enough of your jokes. So this time, you're going to pay for it." The tone of her voice turned malicious, and suddenly, I felt my laughter die away. My expression fell as she continued. "All right then. Since you find us so cute, let's see how cute you look in it. All right girls, let's get his clothes off." It dawned on me why the other girls were present. Outnumbered by 6 tall, strong lacrosse players with 2 more girls assisting, resistance was futile. In an instant, they seized me, deposited me onto an exercise mat, and despite my feeble struggles, swiftly stripped me of all my clothes. The humiliation was about to begin. With a wicked grin, Emma grabbed her maroon knickers, and in no time, they forced them over my feet and up my legs. Next came her white blouse, swiftly followed by her maroon and silver tie, which she knotted around my neck. They hoisted me to my feet, and Emma spoke. "Now, if you cooperate, the girls will let you go. Otherwise, we'll finish dressing you by force." "What's it going to be?" Defeated, I looked at her and muttered, "All right, you win. What's next?" At Emma's signal, the girls released me. "Next. The one thing we truly despise wearing," my sister remarked, holding up our regulation school gym tunic with the back facing me. "Get in," she commanded. I stepped into the grey tunic, and she pulled it up over my body, guiding my arms through the armholes. Standing behind me, she fastened the buttons along the back and secured the buckle belt, ensuring the skirt hung neatly. "Sit down," Emma instructed. I sat on a chair as she pulled her white ankle socks onto my feet and folded them neatly at the ankle. She then fitted her brown T-bar strap shoes securely, designed not to come off, clearly chosen for their juvenile style that morning. "Now," Emma continued, "time to do something about your hair. Luckily, it's nice and long right now." She reached into her bag, and I groaned as she produced a white hair ribbon and a brush. "Sit still and keep your head straight," she ordered. After combing my hair down the center, Emma gathered one side into a tight bunch, securing it with an elastic band. She repeated the process on the other side, leaving me with two conspicuous bunches of hair sticking up. Taking the white hair ribbon, she wound it tightly around one bunch, tying it in a non-slip bow and pulling it closer to my head. "Oh," I protested. "That's too tight, it hurts." "Nonsense," Rachel said, a slight grin on her face. "That's just how it has to be done. Don't worry, you'll get used to it." Emma repeated the process with the other bunch of hair, securing the effect with two pink plastic hair slides to hold the ribbons in place. As a final touch, she combed my hair forward into a fringe and neatly cut it across the front with a pair of scissors. After making some adjustments to ensure the bows were evenly placed, she straightened them so they sat at the same angle against my head. She grinned at me and said, "Perfect, now stand up." As I stood, she held out her maroon school blazer, and I slipped my arms into the sleeves. She pulled it over my shoulders, adjusting the sleeves of my blouse to match the blazer cuffs. Stepping back, she admired her work and declared, "There we go, one little girl ready for school." Giggles erupted from the other girls. Emma rolled up my boys' clothes and tucked them into her bag. "Now, little sister, I think it's time to head home, don't you?" "Like this?" I exclaimed, incredulous. "No way." "Well, we can't have all the fun to ourselves, can we?" she chuckled. "Oh no, you're coming into town with us. Grab him, girls." Before I could protest further, strong arms seized me, dragging me out through the door and into the open. Emma and her friends had orchestrated their revenge perfectly. Here I was, 5 miles from home, dressed in the very school uniform I had mocked them for wearing at the coffee bar. It dawned on me that I had no choice now but to go home like this, likely to be the amusement of countless schoolgirls. I felt near tears from the humiliation. The girls wasted no time. "Come on," Rachel urged. "Let's get him down to the bus stop." Realizing I had no alternative, I walked with them, my cheeks burning with shame. They escorted me down the school's front drive, through the main gate, and along the lane toward the bus stop in the village. I'll leave the teasing remarks from the other girls to your imagination. By the time we reached the bus stop, I found myself surrounded by about 24 of them, laughing and taunting. I stood there, feeling trapped, hoping desperately for the bus to arrive soon so I could escape this ordeal. But my sister and her friends had other plans. They were determined to prolong my humiliation. Finally, the bus pulled up. I moved forward with the crowd to board, but Emma and Lily grabbed and held me back. "Oh no you don't," Emma grinned. "We have something else in mind for you, a nice, leisurely walk home. Come on." I felt a sinking disappointment as the bus pulled away, leaving me with the girls on what would be a 2-hour walk home. As we approached the outskirts of town, more schoolchildren from different schools appeared from various directions, and the girls took delight in drawing attention to me. The teasing comments from the girls were worse than the ridicule from boys, but my biggest fear was being seen by boys from my own school. Being on holiday, I hoped to avoid that embarrassment. After about an hour and a half, we arrived at Rachel and Lily's house. They were sisters. Inside, their mother burst into laughter upon seeing me. After the girls explained why I was dressed like this, she simply said, "Well, you deserve it, Mark. This will teach you not to mock the girls, won't it?" I blushed and remained silent. Rachel and Lily quickly changed into slacks and blouses. "All right," Lily said, "let's go." "Where are we going?" I asked. "We're going for coffee, little sister," Emma grinned. "Right back to where we were when you thought it was funny to make fun of us. And guess what? The boys will be there too. They can't wait to see you." "Oh no, please no," I weakly protested, knowing it was futile. Rachel opened the front door to reveal a downpour outside. "Oh rats," she sighed. "It's pouring." She looked at me for a moment, then a mischievous smile crossed her face. "Well, that's good. It means you'll need to wear my school Macintosh. You'll look really cute in it." She grabbed her school Macintosh from a hook. "Here you go," she said gleefully. "Now you'll get to experience what it's like to wear our regulation school Macintosh. We have to wear them every time it rains, of course, but we hate them because they make us look so childish. So, this time, it's your turn." The girls chuckled as Rachel held it up for me to inspect. I was quite familiar with it, having seen Emma wear hers countless times. It was a typical regulation-style single-breasted girls' school Macintosh, made of unlined, light grey rubberized cotton, featuring a buckle belt with two keepers attached to the coat, one on each side of the waist. From the shoulders hung an attached hood with a square top, a common style for girls' school raincoat hoods. The hood was lined in maroon and had tie tapes to secure it under the chin. Rachel raised her Macintosh for me to slip into, and I obediently slid my arms into the sleeves. Standing before me, she buttoned it up to my neck, passed the belt through the buckle, tightened it around my waist, and secured it with the buttonhole at the end of the belt. Looking out at the downpour, Rachel remarked, "We'd better put up your hood, I think. We wouldn't want those sweet little hair ribbons getting wet, would we?" She pulled the Macintosh hood over my head, tightened the tapes, tied them under my chin in a bow, and adjusted the hood to frame my face. "There," she grinned. "That'll keep you snug. Don't you look adorable peeking out from under your hood like that? Just like a little schoolgirl. Now, let's go." Lily and Rachel donned their jackets, and one of the girls grabbed 3 umbrellas, distributing one to each before ushering my reluctant self out into the rain-soaked street. As we walked along, I was acutely aware of how much I resembled a schoolgirl now, though the hood offered some comfort by shielding my face from view. Nonetheless, the journey through town to the seafront was torturous, with the heavy rain beating down on my Macintosh and trickling onto my damp legs and feet. Eventually, we arrived at the coffee bar and entered. My heart sank when I spotted the 3 boys seated in a corner, awaiting our arrival. We approached them, and Emma greeted, "Hi guys, we made it." Turning to me, she grinned and introduced, "And now I'd like you to meet my little sister." With that, she untied the bow under my chin and pushed back my hood. She unbuttoned and removed my Macintosh, draping it over a chair. When the boys saw what I was wearing, they erupted into laughter. "Oh, that's brilliant," one exclaimed. "What a sweet little schoolgirl." "Exactly," Emma declared triumphantly, seating me at the table. "Remember what he called us? Cute little 10-year-old schoolgirls. Well, who's the little schoolgirl now? The delightful twist is that we're all in trousers, and the only one still in his charming school uniform that Mark found so lovely is Mark himself. We've completely turned the tables, haven't we?" "We certainly have," giggled Rachel. "What a perfectly fitting punishment." I had to admit, it certainly was. We lingered there for about an hour before they decided to head off to a disco. As we stood to leave, Emma smiled at me, lifting up my Macintosh for me to put on. "I'm afraid little schoolgirls aren't allowed into discos," she grinned, buttoning me up, pulling the hood over my head, and tying it securely in a neat bow under my chin. "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I asked. "Walk home, of course," Emma laughed. "All by yourself through town. Enjoy yourself, won't you?" They settled the bill, escorted me outside, and then left me there to trudge home through the rainy streets alone, resembling a lonely schoolgirl caught in the downpour. At least the people who saw me didn't give me a second glance. To them, I was just another schoolgirl. I wasn't sure whether to be relieved or not. There was one more letdown to endure. When I arrived home, I realized I didn't have my front door key and stood miserably in the rain for a while. Finally, I gathered my courage and knocked on our neighbor Mrs. Johnson's door. She opened it and burst out laughing at the sight of me before saying, "Come in, Mark. Why on earth are you dressed like Emma?" I stepped inside, and she removed my hood and wet mackintosh, hanging it up before leading me into the living room. Unfortunately, her 10-year-old daughter Emily was there with a friend, and upon seeing me, the two girls erupted into giggles. I spent the next couple of hours sitting on the sofa, patiently enduring the girls' playful tugging and adjusting of my hair ribbons while attempting to watch TV. Finally, I heard Mum's car pulling up our driveway, so I jumped up to go. Mrs. Johnson helped me into my mackintosh and buttoned it up before I dashed through the rain to our front door. Mum let me in, chuckled at the sight of me, and asked, "Well, it seems I have two daughters now. What's this all about, Mark?" I spent a while explaining what had transpired, and Mum simply grinned. "Well," she remarked as she removed my hair ribbons, "I suppose you'll think twice about teasing your sister in the future, won't you? Let this be a lesson for you. Now, go upstairs and change. Afterward, come back downstairs and we'll have some tea." I'm curious to hear how Emma orchestrated everything so cleverly. I headed upstairs and was relieved to put on something more appropriate. From then on, I never teased Emma again, and we grew closer than ever. However, she still took the opportunity to conspicuously display the photos of me dressed as a schoolgirl whenever she wanted to remind me of my misstep. Blackmail? Almost.